Hello and welcome to St Peter Mancroft, to those of you here and those of you watching online. I'm Fiona Haworth, the Associate Priest. This is part of our series of live-streamed reflections from Mancroft, and if you're visiting the church, you're very welcome to continue looking around. In May this year, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, gave a speech on immigration. You are probably aware of it because of the debate generated by one phrase he used, namely that we risk becoming an island of strangers if immigration is not checked. Many people have been highly critical of this language, not least the children's poet and author and professor of children's literature in the Department of Education Studies at Goldsmiths University, Michael Rosen, who responded with a poem about the care he received when he contracted COVID early in the pandemic and spent 7 weeks in intensive care, 6 of those weeks on a ventilator. After recovering enough to be transferred to another hospital, Michael had to learn how to walk again. Responding to the Prime Minister's words, Michael Rosen wrote this poem, which has been widely shared. I lay in bed, hardly able to breathe, but there were people to sedate me, pump air into me, calm me down when I thrashed around, hold my hand and reassure me, play me songs my family sent in, turn me over to help my lungs, shave me, wash me, feed me, check my medication, perform the tracheostomy. People on this island of strangers from China, Jamaica, Brazil, Ireland, India, USA, Nigeria, and Greece. I sat on the edge of my bed, and 4 people came with a frame and supported me, or took me to a gym where they taught me how to walk between parallel bars or kick a balloon, sat me in a wheelchair, taught me how to use the exercise bike, how to walk with a stick, how to walk without a stick. People on this island of strangers from China, Jamaica, Brazil, Ireland, India, USA, Nigeria, and Greece. If ever you're in need as I was, may you have an island of strangers like I had. The subject of immigration continues to be a divisive one. In part, this is down to the way in which the debate is framed by the media, with frequent scare stories about illegal migration, and the divisive language used by some politicians who speak of an invasion of small boats, or peddle untrue stories about immigrants arriving and walking straight into a council house or receiving benefits. Recently, Shadow Justice Minister Robert Jenrick hit the headlines for claiming that in 90 minutes in Handsworth, he didn't see another white face, and that it is one of the least integrated places in Britain. The Bishop of Birmingham wrote an open letter to him saying, "Your comments about a perceived failure of integration are entirely wrong, and I reject them." So much of what we hear about immigration is wrong. Most immigrants are here legally. Of those who do risk their lives trying to enter Britain in small boats or smuggled in on lorries, 75% are granted asylum on their first claim, with appeals taking the total number up to 80%. The criteria for meeting an asylum claim is strict, and those granted asylum are fleeing from situations of real danger and threat. Many come to the UK because they speak English as a second language and may have relatives already here. Conditions for asylum seekers are far from generous. In the UK, asylum seekers generally receive financial support to cover basic living expenses, typically ranging from £49.18 per week if they're living in self-catered accommodation, or £8.86 per week for those in full board accommodation. This support is designed to help cover essentials like food, clothing, and toiletries. We forget that many asylum seekers are highly skilled and would work if they were allowed to, contributing to the economy. Of immigrants here legally, most work and contribute more to the economy than they cost. Many are in areas where we have real shortages of staff: the NHS, the care sector, construction, seasonal workers like fruit pickers and agricultural workers. When the public is asked whether they support immigration by role, they are generally much more positive than they would be in response to a general question. 21% of health workers are migrants from outside the EU, often highly skilled. In our overstretched and understaffed NHS, it is difficult to see how we would manage without them. People respond positively to genuine need. When Russia invaded Ukraine, it was public pressure that led the government to introduce a visa scheme for Ukrainians to come to the UK. As Christians, our approach to debates like this should be shaped by facts rather than scaremongering, and by our tradition. In Leviticus it says this: "The alien who resides with you shall be to you as the citizen among you. You shall love the alien as yourself, for you were aliens in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God." This is an oft-repeated refrain in the Bible, both in the Hebrew and Christian scriptures. And we often miss telling the part of the Christmas story of Mary and Joseph with the child Jesus, fleeing from Herod's wrath as refugees and residing in Egypt as immigrants. And Jesus, as he so often does, invites us to change the question. I mentioned that attitudes to immigration change if people are asked specific questions. Should we stop doctors or care workers or lecturers or footballers coming here? And generally the answer is no, of course not. I hope that we would respond similarly to the question, should we welcome people fleeing from war as we welcomed Ukrainians just as positively? But Jesus' approach is different still. In the parable of the Good Samaritan, he asks us to consider not who is my neighbour, but instead, who can I be a neighbour to? Interestingly, it is Zach Polanski, newly elected leader of the Green Party and a Jew, who has picked up on the neighbourly language of Jesus. In his speech to the Green Party conference, he describes Britain as a nation of neighbours. He spent a day door-knocking in Handsworth and speaks of finding a community of warmth and strength. When we think about immigration, we need to hold firm to our Christian principles and welcome the stranger as if we are welcoming Christ himself. A truly Christian nation is a nation of neighbours, welcoming and inclusive of all of God's children.